So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown.
As MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell perfectly put it, MAGA Mike, after doing his fearless cult leader's bidding for almost a year now, finally caves and essentially turns on said cult leader.
Donald Trump's dictatorial power over Congress will not continue. Today, Donald Trump is the biggest loser in presidential history on legislation passed by both the House and the Senate that is a direct rebuke of the president. No president has ever suffered a personal rebuke on legislation anywhere close to the enormity of what Donald Trump suffered today. Mike Johnson spent the year doing Donald Trump's dirty work in the House of Representatives by blocking any chance for a vote on releasing the Epstein files. And then when the vote was forced upon him, Mike Johnson completely surrendered. And then Mike Johnson was doubly humiliated in his surrender today.
Where the odds that Donald Trump will finish his term as president have dipped in light of a Republican revolt over the president's BF Jeffrey Epstein. Did you hear about this? The House could vote as soon as tomorrow on whether to release the Epstein files, and that vote...
The audience is still laughing at a throwaway joke about traffic in Brooklyn when Jimmy Kimmel tilts the card in his hand, looks dead into the lens, and asks the question every HR training module dreams of hearing on national television. Does the White House have HR? The crowd surges like someone just took the governor off the engine. 10 seconds earlier, he's teeing up a clip of the 47th president musing about his own press secretary's lips.
Now, there was some new information in the documents. Contrary to what Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi said, there was video of that missing minute of security footage shot outside Epstein's cell. That footage somehow this footage got re-edited more times than the Zack Snyder Justice League.
And 10 seconds later, he is turning it into a workplace red flag parade that America cannot unsee. That is the moment the tone changes. Karoline Leavitt is no longer just the message machine. She is the message, and not in a way the West Wing wanted. Before we go any further, if you want more breakdowns that cut through spin with receipts and a clean laugh, hit like so this reaches people outside our bubble, and subscribe to America Facticity so we can keep doing these without shouting.
Videos have circulated showing a visibly shaken Mike Johnson after the Senate passed legislation to declassify documents related to Epstein without the amendments he and the White House had sought. Earlier, the House had passed the bill overwhelmingly.
Any reaction to Leader Thune seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think, I'm told, I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see. I was standing there with the Crown Prince. We couldn't talk.
Are you frustrated in the majority leader? Are you upset with the majority leader?
And now with the spotlight essentially shifting to the president, the man who called the Epstein matter a hoax, despite the fact that he and his entire contingent had been running on the idea that they would release all the files with full transparency before he was elected president. Well, Mike Johnson followed that up with a press conference today that, well, is bound to have Donald.
HR line is that it did two jobs at once. It shined a bright light on a boss who cannot stop narrating his own impulses like it is a radio show, and it shielded the staffer who should never have been pulled into that carnival in the first place. Kimmel never needed to get personal with Karoline. He did not speculate about her. He did not invent lurid backstory. He simply took the clip the president handed the world, held it up to studio light, and asked if any other workplace in the country would call that normal.
Get it out like immediately. Is that right? How's Karoline doing? Is she doing good? Should Karoline be replaced?
No. That's up to you, sir.
Nobody wants to. I say she does a great job. Do you want to elaborate on the
and those lips, they move like a machine gun, right?
Do you want to elaborate on the
Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
The room did the rest. Live TV can still do something precious when it refuses to pretend a red flag is a necktie. Of course, the fun did not start with HR. If you have been watching this relationship for more than 5 minutes, you know the rhythm. Karoline Leavitt says the quiet part wrong on a friendly set, Kimmel rolls the tape in prime time, and a brand new meme gets its passport stamped.
Bigly, at least 50 Republicans are expected to break ranks, which has forced Trump to now claim he's for the files being released. After almost a year of saying he didn't want to release, after a year of stalling, hedging, browbeating members of his own party last night, all of a sudden Trump reversed course completely. He wrote, as I said on Friday night to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. We have nothing to hide. I have some bad news. There's no we. It's just you, bro.
At the White House / New Mar-a-Lago walls.
And then Mike Johnson was doubly humiliated in his surrender today after he said this.
I called my counterpart in the Senate, Leader Thune, and I talked him through this with him and shared our deep concerns. And of course, they share those concerns as well. And so I'm very confident that when this moves forward in the process, if and when it is processed in the Senate, which there's no certainty that that will be, that they will take the time methodically to do what we have not been allowed to do in the House, to amend this discharge petition.
He was guaranteed by Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune that the Senate would amend the bill passed by the House and include the kind of changes Mike Johnson insisted were necessary. He actually said, I called my counterpart in the Senate, Leader Thune, and I talked through this with him and shared our deep concerns. When I heard that, I thought, well, for sure, the Senate is going to have to add amendments or try to add amendments. And now I know someone is lying. Either Mike Johnson is lying about that phone call, or John Thune lied to Mike Johnson on that phone call, because John Thune had no intention of offering amendments to the House bill. And now we have all the evidence we could possibly ask for that John Thune was the person who convinced Donald Trump that it was all over. And that is when Donald Trump put out his tweet saying that Republicans in the House should vote to release the Epstein files. He only would have done that if Donald Trump knew there was absolutely no hope that the United States Senate could stop this vote. And today, the Senate vote was unanimous. It included every Republican.
Take United Nations Week, the escalator that would not, the teleprompter that tried to retire mid-shift, and the campaign spin that the UN itself sabotaged the 47th president like a Bond villain with a maintenance degree. Kimmel did not need to summon policy experts for that one. He punched it with the simple, undeniable thought people already had in their heads. Everything is a conspiracy, even stairs. The crowd broke because that is what you call permission. Permission to stop pretending your eyes are lying to you.
And if you have nothing to hide, why even have the vote? Why not just have The Department of Justice released the files now. After 10 months of fighting tooth and nail, doing everything he could to keep those files secret, he's now asking for a full release, which is what got all these guys in trouble in the first place. So his plan now is hurry up and release the files so I can start saying they're fake. Last week, he tried a last-minute arm twist to get Republicans like Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace to back off this Epstein stuff. Lauren Boebert was even summoned to the Situation Room to be worked over by Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They tried to persuade her to remove her signature from the petition demanding the files be made public, which is exactly what someone who's totally innocent and has nothing to hide.
And then there was the suspension saga, the brief preemptions that lit up rumor accounts like it was New Year's Eve. If you follow late night, you remember the week. Affiliates flinched. The internet clanged pots and pans. The president's cheering section announced, confidently and loudly, that Jimmy was canceled, fired, done, stick a fork in him. Karoline Leavitt went out and added a neat official bow to that fairy tale, insisting the White House had no role in any of it, while brushing off the whole affair as a ratings problem.
With all due respect to former President Obama, he has no idea what he's talking about. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel and to cancel his show came from executives at ABC. That has now been reported, and I can assure you it did not come from the White House, and there was no pressure given from the President of the United States. And how do I know that, Kaylee? Because I was with the President of the United States when this news broke.
Boebert Mace did not give in to the pressure campaign, so now Trump's ordered his attorney general to investigate Democrat ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which is like Diddy ordering an investigation into why there were so many bottles of baby oil in his house.
We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others, all Democrats.
That's right. All his friends were Democrats. All his friends were Democrats, including this one. That right there, yeah. That's when he was a Democrat. Look at all the smiles. This photo is everything you need to know about Donald Trump in one shot. There's no evidence, by the way, that Bill Clinton has ever been to Epstein Island. Every one of Jeffrey Epstein's emails, or even one, says Clinton was never, ever there. Never. And there's no evidence Trump was on the island either. But the emails between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell very clearly say Trump spent hours with one of Epstein's victims, who is now deceased. But don't let that distract you from the Donald Trump version of this story.
Then Brooklyn Week started. Kimmel walked onto a stage vibrating like a home playoff game, and he ended an entire argument with 8 words. We are back on all the stations. The laugh that followed wasn't just celebration. It was the sound of a narrative collapsing in real time. On the very next beat, he pivoted to Karoline, and this is where the expose really happened. He did not rant. He did not list bullet points. He let the reinstatement speak, then he held up the talking points it just shattered.
Mr. President, what did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago. It's really, what did he mean when he spent all the time with Bill Clinton?
That's right. Bill Clinton should immediately resign as President of the United States. One of the emails, the one that got the most attention this weekend, referred to Trump, quote, blowing a person named Bubba. Man, he couldn't even let Hillary have that, huh? This Bubba thing got so crazy that Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, who wrote that email, came forward to clarify that the Bubba he was referring to was not Bill Clinton. But who is Bubba then? Maybe Gump? Maybe he was deep-throating shrimp? We don't know. If the bill to release the files passes the House, it will then go to the Senate, and then if it passes the Senate, it goes to Trump's desk, where he would be forced to sign or veto it, which would be a very embarrassing way for him to learn how a bill becomes a law.
And this bill forces the documents to be released despite the White House's objections. But if you were to read between the lines of what Pam Bondi was saying in her press conference today, it's pretty clear that they're already considering running cover for something. Why not just release it all? Who are you trying to protect here? Because it's certainly not the victims. They have called for full transparency and release.
Had an
On the Epstein files, does the new investigation by the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney prevent the department from releasing all of the remaining files?
So we have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
Madam Attorney General, do you mean that you will provide all the files by 30 days?
We will follow the law. The law passed both chambers last evening. It has not yet been signed, but we will continue to follow the law, again, while protecting victims, but also providing maximum transparency.
Madam Attorney General, the DOJ statement earlier this year saying that the files would not release mentioned the fact that the review of the documents and the evidence did not suggest that any additional investigation of third parties was warranted. What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come for information. There's information new information, additional information. And again, we will continue to follow the law, to investigate any leads. If there are any victims, we encourage all victims to come forward. And we will continue to provide maximum transparency under the law.
Live TV is very efficient when facts are taller than spin. Leavitt has a press style that is tailor-made for Kimmel's desk. It is part hall monitor, part hype woman, part ref who throws a flag at the same time as the play is still being drawn. Think back to the Casey Hunt moment on CNN when Karoline tried to turn the opening 60 seconds into a moderator indictment, got told the rules twice, and then got cut off on air because the interview could no longer function. Late-night hosts remember those little media earthquakes. You do not need to hate the person to understand the script. Attack the refs. Question the platform. Declare the game rigged before the first question lands. Kimmel's monologues are built to translate that energy for people who missed the show at 7 a.m. He brings it back at 11:35 in front of an audience that came prepared to laugh at the difference between talking and saying something.
All they're doing is further alienating the president, making him look even more dodgy, as we would say in Scotland.
I believe that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party.
The thing is, Donald Trump is already losing a mass amount of support over this issue. Take, for instance, Miss Ultra MAGA herself, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has vocally distanced herself from her once fearless cult leader over this very issue. After she joined a bipartisan petition demanding the release of the Epstein files and criticized Trump's refusal to push for transparency, Trump then withdrew his endorsement of Greene. Again, I will point out, this is not the behavior of someone who has nothing to hide.
That fact alone is enough for us to ask questions about if it's a disqualifying factor for leadership. So I just don't know why you're so fervent right now, saying that I know for a fact he has nothing. Can we see the files and make that decision? Scott?
Look, here's what I think. It's been going on for 10 years. If there was a shred of anything to know about Donald Trump, we would already know it. What do we know? We know
I'm answering your question. Evidence is not the evidence of absence.
We know that Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein, and we know that he excommunicated him from Mar-a-Lago and his life. We also know that after Epstein was convicted, that powerful Democrats continued to stay in touch with Jeffrey Epstein. This is not a story about Trump. It is a story about powerful men. Many of them are in the Democratic Party. We're going to find that out.
One thing I would also note, Donald Trump was a Democrat back when he was hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein. So talk of all the Democrats hanging around Jeffrey Epstein includes him.
The HR beat was the sharpest because it forced a little clarity on a system that tries to avoid clarity at all costs. If a boss commented on a staffer's lips in your office, HR would send you 3 PDFs and a calendar invite. Kimmel saying the quiet rules out loud on ABC did what very good comedy does. It made normal sound normal again. You could see the shoulders in the crowd drop. This is not about politics. It is about a workplace where the most powerful person in the building treats boundaries like furniture. People get it. You do not need a think tank footnote to understand why that is gross. And yet, as always, the boomerang. When Kimmel yanks the mask off a ridiculous claim, the comms loop sends out a new ridiculous claim to replace it and hopes you are too tired to chase it. That is why the UN sabotage line is such a gift to an editor. It discredits itself in 6 words. Kimmel's better at exploiting that than anyone else in late night because he slows down when everyone else speeds up. He lets the silence breathe. He gives you 2 beats to register the physical comedy of a stuck escalator, and then he taps the sign. Those stairs did not get a memo from the deep state. There is a small but important grace in how Kimmel handles Karoline as a character inside these jokes. He does not call her names. He does not insult appearance. He does not punch down. He simply resets the frame from stated fact to obvious spin and keeps his aim on the boss who keeps putting her in lose-lose segments. You can hear it in the crowd noise. The laugh is not cruel. It is grateful. Grateful that somebody on television is still comfortable saying that a ridiculous excuse is still ridiculous, even if it comes in a clean font and a confident tone. Kimmel's Brooklyn return magnified all of this. For a week, people prepared to write eulogies for a show that wasn't dead, and when the lights went up, the bit wrote itself. We are back on all the stations. Not a flex, a fact. The president had celebrated a cancellation that never happened. Karoline had carried water for a storyline that evaporated on contact with a standing ovation. There is a reason that moment keeps getting clipped and re-uploaded. It is the sound of a lie meeting a live audience and losing. Karoline's bigger problem is that her boss cannot stop handing Kimmel material that highlights the worst version of her job. Press secretaries are supposed to build distance between their principal and the ick. Not here. Here, the ick wanders into the briefing room, starts narrating facial features, and dares the world to call it what it is. That is not communications. That is sabotage. Not from the UN either, from inside the house. There is also the mascara chapter from that same Brooklyn week, which you absolutely have to keep in the cut because it captured the entire aesthetic in one swipe. In 3.5 years, I am not the one who is going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube. You could feel the audience lean forward as one because the line was a thesis. The image factory is breaking down. If politics is going to be a vibe, it is at least going to be an honest one. When your brand depends on being the toughest guy in the room and your staff is busy cleaning up weird personal commentary from the boss, you don't have a vibe, you have a costume. But the meanest KO of all is still the simplest. Kimmel holds up the receipts and waits. He did it with the UN Week conspiracy. He did it with the cancellation fantasy. He did it when Karoline declared the White House had absolutely no role in the affiliate drama while the country was watching local stations trip over themselves to prove the opposite in real time. He plays the clip, he quotes the post, he reads the sentence, and then he stops talking. No blizzard of adjectives, no performance of outrage, just a stare that says we all see it, and a room that says thank you for not pretending this is complicated. There is a reason the reaction machine leans so hard into the word unfair whenever these segments catch fire. It is because fairness in this context looks like work. It looks like answering the question on the paper instead of writing a different test. Kimmel's audience can tell when someone is answering a question. They can tell when someone is filibustering. Karoline keeps getting booked to filibuster. Kimmel keeps turning the filibuster into a blooper. That is not because he hates her. It is because dead air is what happens when spin runs out of oxygen and someone opens a window. I can already hear the pushback. This is petty. This is entertainment. This is just a guy reading cue cards with snark between clips. Sure. And it is the most efficient literacy lesson America gets all week. It reminds people what they are looking at. It resets the baseline. It replaces the fog with a simple, usable translation. Boss says something weird about staffer on air. Staff defends it as normal. Comedian says, no, that is not normal, and here is why your gut was right. That process, repeated a few million times, is how a country remembers it is allowed to use its inside voice without asking permission. None of this works unless the audience does its tiny, humble job. Listen, laugh if it is true, grimace if it is not. Do not pretend. The reason Karoline keeps getting exposed, to use the viral headline word we're all stuck with, is because she keeps being the face of arguments that collapse when exposed to air. The difference between this year and last is that Kimmel isn't giving those arguments extra oxygen. He is giving them a timer, 15 seconds of tape, 2 sentences, a question that a third grader would pass. Do we have HR? If you live to 1,000, you will not see anything as weird as this man running a country. The laugh is not applause for Jimmy. It is relief that someone is still comfortable sorting the obvious from the official. If you are cutting this into a piece, there is an edit that sings without you ever raising your voice. Open on the "Does the White House have HR" line and hold the audience face palms for a beat. Cut to the UN escalator visual with a quick overlay of the word sabotage and let the image drown the claim. Snap to Brooklyn with the "We are back on all the stations" mic drop. Insert a 2-second flashback of the CNN cutoff to remind everyone that press dodge is not strategy. It is a habit. Return to Kimmel for the mascara tag and freeze on the smirk. Let the card at the end say what needs saying. You can yell at jokes. You cannot beat replays. If this breakdown hit the way you wanted, tap like so the algorithm does not bury this under outrage bait. Tell me in the comments which moment should be the cold open in the final cut. And if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to America Facticity for more breaking news. I want to know which line stuck to you. Was it the HR question? Was it the escalator conspiracy turned into a Stairmaster bit? Was it the Brooklyn all the stations sentence that shut the rumor factory down? The answer will tell me which clip to lead with next time. The bottom line is not subtle. Kimmel did not need to invent a scandal or throw a tantrum to expose Karoline Leavitt on live TV. He needed to be patient. He needed to be specific. He needed to let the president hang his own staff out to dry with comments that should never have been said out loud. The moral is not that late night is mean. It is that late night is still willing to notice when a line is crossed. If the people in charge cannot or will not say it in daylight, the comics will say it under studio lights. Some weeks that feels like the only adult supervision the culture has left. This week, it felt like a class on boundaries masquerading as a monologue, and Karoline Leavitt learned the lesson the hard way.